Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, Stephen.
The Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull is on his travels at the moment. We've seen media images recently of him in a hot and humid Indonesian market taking his tie off. Do you think he's creating a good impression on the Indonesian public?
Well, apparently it was quite something different to be taken by the President to this market. People were reading all sorts of diplomatic significance into that. It looked to be a bit of a trying excursion, but nevertheless, Malcolm Turnbull's obviously got some points there, so it was worth the heat and sweat.
Right, well, the climatic conditions in Germany, where he's going next, I think will be different at this time of...
Indeed.
So it's been an interesting week. We've had the launch of a tax debate, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But can we clear away one issue about Julie Bishop? There are stories or allegations that she was disloyal to Tony Abbott by proxy through her Chief of Staff attending a meeting. Does anyone actually care about this, and does it even strengthen her popular position in that she might have helped get rid of an unpopular Prime Minister?
I think that the Abbott forces in the party, who are still pretty unhappy and bitter, have obviously seized on this. They do care about it, but out in the real world, firstly, people are I think happy that there's been a change of Prime Minister. They've welcomed the new Prime Minister. We see that in the polls. And secondly, and in light of that, they really regard all this as the ins and outs of something that's now history, not of current relevance.
Well, let's go back to tax then. There was to be a green paper out this year, but that's been pushed into next year if it happens at all, the green paper. That's a long period to have an unmanaged debate about tax. It gives ammunition to Labour and the Greens, and it gives them a chance to make the running in the tax debate. So do you think this is good politics from the government's point of view?
I think it's quite risky politics, but it's perhaps something that in a way can't be avoided, because I think so far the government is not quite sure of what it wants to put to the people. It knows probably what it would like to put to the people, which is a substantial shift from direct tax, income tax, to relying more on consumption tax. But whether it in fact feels in the end it can make the numbers work, that it can make the politics work, is not yet clear, and it'll take a few months for that to be really planned out. So in the meantime, it's having this debate. Malcolm Turnbull's using his political capital and sometimes his silver tongue to say, well, let's all talk about it before we get to specifics. So another Prime Minister probably couldn't have got away with it. Maybe he can't get away with it, but certainly he's giving it a try.
Well, we've heard various emollient remarks, for example, that the poor won't be worse off, and possibly on one interpretation no one will be worse off except perhaps wealthy superannuants. So my question is it all worth it? Are the efficiency gains for the economy through tax reform worth the political costs if it doesn't actually redistribute income significantly?
I think that there are some gains in getting a more efficient tax system. There gains particularly over the longer term, and we do have a revenue problem, whatever the government says, not just a spending problem, and this does go to that. But the gain shouldn't be over-emphasised. A lot of other things need to be done in the economy, not just tax reform, but it is pretty central.
Well, another of the topics which we expect to be coming back is higher education. This is something that I've stayed away from in our discussions because in a way I was a player in relation to the Christopher Pyne proposals, but presumably something's coming back to Parliament soon. There's a new minister. The government's been building bridges with the crossbenchers, or at least has been polite to them. Do you think Simon Birmingham's prospects are better than Christopher Pyne's turned out to be?
I do. I think he is potentially a good negotiator, but it will depend on what comes back, and we don't have much idea about how ambitious that will be. Obviously, the deregulation package couldn't be got through the Senate, so it can't have the big elements of that, but we do have to wait for the details. One interesting thing is that there are savings built into the budget from the earlier package. Now, when we get the mid-year budget update in December, that will tell us whether the government is still trying to bank as much of a saving or something less. But it will be a bit of a tricky exercise, because if it hasn't announced the detail of the package, then anything different in terms of savings, how do you justify that? And if you have the same savings, people say, well, you really are going to bring back the old measures.
Well, and for the benefit of our loyal audience, the savings were a 20% cut in teaching grants. This was significant money. So if they come back, then there'll be considerable opposition to it, especially if there isn't the compensating proposal to have fee deregulation. So this is going to be a tough one for the government to sell, if that's what it's aiming to do.
I don't think it will try to be that ambitious, but there is this timing question about putting together the package and putting together the mid-year figures, and how that's going to work out is one of the many open questions around this government.
Well, Michelle, I think we're in for a taxing time in various respects. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.